no place like the Q. Family, this is your favorite queer radio personality, Anna DeShawn, and this is Queer News, your favorite weekly news pod where race and sexuality meet politics, culture, and entertainment. This is your number one stop for queer news done right, only on E3 Radio.
Power! Nature! Power! Nature! Power! Nature! Power! Nature! Power! Nature! Power! Power!
That right there was Queen Jean leading a chant at a Miss Major memorial service that took place over the weekend in New York City. We're going to talk a lot more about that moment in just a little bit, so stay close, okay? Because, child, why can't nothing just be simple for us? QCrew, what's going on? Thank you for your continued commitment to helping to sustain this podcast. It is not easy, especially right now. So thank you. $5 a month, $10 a month, $50 a month, whatever you give, it goes such a long way to sustaining this podcast, helping to cover the costs of our editor, Ryan, who I quite literally wouldn't want to do this podcast without. So if you're not part of the QCrew, but you believe in the work we do, you believe LGBTQ stories need to be amplified, you love and respect how I report on the news and tell our stories, please consider joining the QCrew, okay? A link is in the show notes. And family, don't forget, we got our Queer News tip line. It's open 24/7, 365. So if there's a story not getting enough amplification, send in a Queer News tip. Info on how to do that is where you already know. It's in the show notes. Now for the news. This week's episode will be a little different today as I am learning, to be more kind to myself. I'm coming off a road trip to South Haven, Mississippi /Memphis for my cousin's wedding this past weekend. It was so good to see my family, and it's been too long. And I knew I wouldn't have the bandwidth for a full episode. It was an 8-hour drive down there. It was an 8-hour drive back home. And we did this in 3 days, okay? So today we will have a couple of stories and then I'll share an interview with Cathy Renna of the National LGBTQ Task Force about creating change. Now with that, our top story is about Miss Major's memorial service that took place in New York City on Saturday. And in politics, 17, I didn't say 1, I didn't say 2, I didn't say 10. I said 17 trans Air Force members are suing Trump. And then we will play that interview with Cathy Renna about creating change during our culture and entertainment section. Let's get into it. For our top story, on Saturday, November 22nd, in New York City's Riverside Church, Glitz and Black Trans Liberation Kitchen led a memorial service for the one, the only Miss Major Griffin Gracie. There have been memorials organized across the country to remember Miss Major since she transitioned on October the 13th at 78 years old. Hundreds gathered in New York City at Riverside Church to remember her impact, her legacy, her unapologetic activism to support the girls, especially Black trans women. In attendance was her longtime partner, Beck, and their son, lead organizers Cayenne Dorishow and Queen Jean, as well as Raquel Willis, Ace Xavier, B. Hawk Snipes, Mariah Moore shared some heartfelt words, and so many others. Fellow podcaster and journalist Amar Jones of Translash was also there, and she posted that the tribute was moving and heartfelt, just what Miss Major deserved. She also shared that transphobia showed its ugly head, y'all, when Riverside Church cut the memorial service an hour short, not 10, not 30 minutes, an hour short, because they couldn't trust transgender, expansive, and queer folks to have a dignified service. Because, and when I say this part was in quotes on Amara's post, In quotes it says, what happened at St. Patrick's, end quote. Now, if you remember, Cecilia Gentili had her memorial service at St. Patrick's. And so it appears they were referencing what happened there. And Chile, what? Family, church will never, ever, ever surprise me. And honestly, this type of response is so on brand. They will say yes to you. They will welcome you in and then turn on you when someone gets uncomfortable. This is what I like to call the line, the church line between being welcomed and being affirmed. Those are two very, very different things. Because even as I went to the church's website to just learn more about them, because clearly they knew who Ms. Major was to even agree, right? They wouldn't agree to this major memorial service without knowing who Ms. Major was. And they wouldn't say yes, right, to hosting this service if they didn't know who Ms. Major was. And so I wanted to know more about them, okay? Because clearly they said yes at some point. Their senior minister is the first African-American woman to hold the position, okay, of senior minister at Riverside Church. Reverend Adrienne Thorne. In her picture, she is cloaked in a rainbow stole around her neck. It definitely gives you're welcomed here. So it seems this church should have a lot to answer for in this moment. Now, after folks received the news that the service was going to be cut an hour short, it said that they were sitting there in shock and they were disappointed and deeply saddened. And it was shared that Queen Jean of Black Trans Liberation began the chant you heard at the top of this show. Major power, major power, major power. It appears Queen took the power back in the room after that news. And that is just how Ms. Major will live on. That right there is just how Ms. Major will never be forgotten. Moments where we choose to take our power back, when we choose to fight and not bend. May Ms. Major never be forgotten. May her work live on forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever. In politics, back in August, I reported about the Air Force betraying their trans service members by denying previously promised benefits after the government kicked them out the military. If you want to hear all the details, I've included a link to that August 11th episode in the show notes, okay? Well, now a group of 17 transgender members of the military gathered to sue the government for a loss of retirement pay. In that episode back in August, I talk about Trump's efforts, right? This Department of War's efforts to remove trans folks from serving in the military. The Air Force said that affected members who served 15 to 18 years could apply for a waiver that would grant them the retirement plan, the retirement pension, which is equivalent to almost $2 million, right? It's on the line here for individuals, as people who served in the Air Force for 15 to 18 years are guaranteed retirement pay for life, including health insurance. This is part of the deal, okay? Now, this lawsuit was filed after the Air Force retracted their promises to issue out retirement pensions to the transgender Air Force personnel. An excerpt from the lawsuit reads, "The Air Force's own retirement instruction provides that retirement orders may only be rescinded under very limited circumstances, none of which were present here. The Air Force confirmed that they would deny all transgender service members the retirement package and cut them loose without any retirement benefits." The Pentagon has not yet commented on the pending lawsuit, but one of the affected members of the Air Force, Master Sergeant Logan Ireland, has. He has always been outspoken, and when interviewed about how he feels having his retirement pension denied, he said this: "The military taught me to lead and fight, not retreat. Stripping away my retirement sends the message that those values only apply on the battlefield, not when a service member needs them most." And family, let's be very clear, this isn't the only evil action the Air Force has taken against trans people serving in the military. In that episode I'm talking about back in August, I reported about how they also denied trans service members the ability to argue for the right to continue serving. That policy was then implemented all over the military. This is all part of the Trump administration's plan to push trans troops out of the military and to erase trans folks from public life, period. We're going to keep following this lawsuit as it progresses because it's going to be incredibly important. This is their livelihood. They voluntarily gave their life to serve this country in the military. And this is how they're treated. If it happens to them, guess what? It'll happen to everybody else. None of us are free until all of us are free. It's not just a slogan. It is actual fact. Now we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, you will hear from Cathy Renna, the National LGBTQ Task Force's Communications Director. But honestly, that title does not surmise the work that Cathy does in the world. Let me tell you, she is so much more than that title. She is glue. You understand? She is a connector. She brings community together in some of the most impactful ways, period. She leads with her heart, and everybody who encounters her will tell you the exact same thing. I got to chat with Cathy about the 2026 Creating Change convening. This gathering is something everyone should know about and support. So after listening, if you want more information about Creating Change, you already know I've included a couple of links in the show notes. Now, you're not going to hear from me after the interview, okay? Anna's word is going to happen right now. And what I want y'all to do this week is take good care of yourselves, okay? I want you to be kind to yourselves. The holidays are hard for so many of us, for so many reasons. Be kind to yourself this week. Try and surround yourself with those who love you the most. Not those that tolerate you, not those that want to misgender you, but those who truly just love you the most, okay? All right, take good care of yourselves. Until next week, peace. If you're listening to this, it means we didn't sell this ad space. If you're listening to this, it means running ads on our podcast can actually work. You see what I did there? Do you need some promo? A little amplification? Hit us up at info@e3radio.fm. That's info@3radio.fm. We have a platform. You should use it. Did you know we had a newsletter? Yes. The Queer News Podcast has a weekly newsletter that comes out every Monday. There's a special newsletter for the QCrew, but there's a free newsletter for absolutely everybody. So if you want to stay in the know about what I got going on, what I got to say unfiltered, and just a list of all the stories covered every single week with time codes, yo, you got to subscribe to the newsletter. A link to subscribe is in the show notes.
Somewhere between 2,500 and 3,000 queer activists and allies show up and show out and come together to talk about how we deal with the coming year and years. DC is really in many ways the perfect space for that. And so many of our national organizations are housed there. It's really important that we be back there. We haven't been there since 2018, so we were overdue.
Long overdue, it seems. And I can't really disagree. I mean, if we're going to be somewhere and raise some hell, DC seems like a great place to do that right now. Family, it's your favorite queer radio personality, Anna DeShawn, and we are back with Creating Change. Cathy, welcome back to the show.
It's good to be back with the fam. How are you?
I'm wonderful. This is a tradition now.
Totally. I love it. One of my favorites.
Period. We have a good time. Okay, family?
We do.
And if you've never been to Creating Change, what are you waiting on? Go there, meet me, see me and the QCrew. Okay, the entire team comes through on Creating Change. And who knows, Cathy be running around. You might be able to meet Cathy, but I can't really promise that.
I don't know. I'm a blur, but you can often find me in the media center because that's what I do. So
that's it. And family, we're excited to let you know that Creating Change is going to be January 21st through the 25th, and it's taking place in DC. Now, Cathy, people asking, why in the world are we going to DC?
Well, the task force our major headquarters is in Washington, DC. We have been there for decades, and we plan these things years ahead of time. But the reality is the timing right now is actually perfect. Where do people need to hear our voice the most, if not in our local, state houses, is in Washington, D.C. So the idea of having somewhere between 2,500 and 3,000 queer activists and allies show up and show out and come together to talk about how we deal with the coming year and years. DC is really, in many ways, the perfect space for that. And so many of our national organizations are housed there. It's really important that we be back there. We haven't been there since 2018, so we were overdue.
Long overdue, it seems. And I can't really disagree. I mean, if we're going to be somewhere and raise some hell, DC seems like a great place to do that right now. And I understand the theme for this year is unstoppable. Yes?
It is. And, I think that says it all. We need to steel ourselves. And I think the interesting thing about creating change, which you know well, is that it's really not a conference. We don't even want to call it a conference anymore. It's really a convening, a gathering of queer folks. Because yes, during the day, the workshops are intense. The day-long institutes are issue and identity focused. And we talk about authoritarianism and fighting fascism and how to raise money and how to do organizing. But what happens in the evening is that we show out our queer joy. And that is as important right now, given the world and the climate that we're living in politically and culturally. So we will, of course, as we always do, have the house ball, have the cabaret, have our receptions in the evening, caucuses, and just being together. One of the things that I love about creating change, and this is the 38th creating change. Wow. And I think I've been to at least 30 of them. So I know. One of the most exciting things about creating change is just being in the hallways, being with the people, hanging out in the lobby. The lobby of whatever hotel we're in becomes the largest queer bar in the universe that night, right? And so just being around all these folks, the energy, the joy, and just, not feeling alone in this work, which has been really tough, just this last, what feels like decade, but it's really only been not even a year. 10 months has felt like 10 years under the Trump administration. So it's really important, I think, for us to come together in January.
It is. And I find that this tradition that we started just a few years ago really does start my year off right. It gives me, if I'm not already full, it fills me up, or I'm running over, truly, in queer joy.
Fills the tank. That's what I always say. Fills the tank.
It really does. It really does. And I love the queer takeover of every hotel bar, that I've ever attended. It's the most beautiful thing on the planet. And this year, theme being unstoppable, which I think is pretty spot on around how we have been this year. And unfortunately, having to be resilient during this time, I do feel like we are really unstoppable, especially when we come together as a group and as a collective, for one mission, which is liberation, queer liberation.
That's right.
I mean, that's at the beginning and the end of all of this. So, Cathy, I know you've been to so many of these. Like you alluded to 30 out of the 38. I bet you it's more than that. But one thing that's really special about creating change are the all-day institutes and sort of the workshops and how people can really dig into one specific topic for a long extended period of time, which you don't get in other places that call themselves conferences, right? So tell the good people a little bit more about those.
Sure. There are about 25 institutes, and they range from the Trans Institute, Bi Institute. There's a Latinx Institute. We're doing a Media Institute, which is an all-day session. We're doing it in partnership with GLAAD, so there'll be full media training with journalists. There are real opportunities to spend time as a group really learning from each other, but also learning from experts in whatever field it is that you're interested in. There's one on labor, there's one on climate change. So the idea of having those that are then, of course, surrounded also by the over 100 workshops that we have is really an incredible opportunity to find the right place for you and to find a place where you can learn and grow and connect with other folks who are interested in the same issues that you're working on or that you want to work on.
Yeah, that's oftentimes where you find your people. Like, I think the beautiful part about creating change is that if you go there and not knowing anybody, you can leave there finding your people.
We actually have a reception very early on and an orientation for first timers.
Yeah. Because
it can be overwhelming. I mean, for folks, especially if you're living in a place where it's not so easy to be queer, to suddenly be in this world that right? It's the world we want to live in all the time, but we get it for 5 days. And it really is extraordinarily diverse. I mean, if you look at who comes to Creating Change, nearly half of the attendees are trans and non-binary, more than half are BIPOC or people of color. It's the kind of world that we're trying to create at the task force. So it feels really special, but it can be a little bit overwhelming. So
absolutely. So family, time to get your registrations. Okay. It's time to sign up. Time to get your people in place. Cathy, how can folks begin to register?
It's super easy. Just go to the taskforce.org or creatingchange.org. There's all kinds of information about registration. We understand that folks have concerns around travel, around being in a city like DC, which has been dealing with occupation by federal ICE and other federal law enforcement entities. So there's a ton of information about that. We take it very seriously. And there's also the opportunity to volunteer. If registration and all of the costs associated with coming to Creating Change are a challenge, we have opportunities for folks to volunteer to have their registration waived. We also offer a tremendous amount of resources around accessibility. So whether it's Spanish language translation, whether it's accessibility with scooters, whether it's ASL, it's really an opportunity to be in a space where you get to be you, as we say at the task force, and you're not just accepted, you're celebrated. We call it radical welcome. And that's exactly what it is.
Yes, it is. So family, go get your registration done. Okay, I want to see you there in the place in DC come January. Okay, it's something that you really don't want to miss. So, and if you can't pay for the registration, sign up to be a volunteer.
Volunteer.
Family, I promise you, that's where you can find your people too. Okay. Cathy, thank you for joining me.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure. And, when we have some more details, we'll send Fernando Lopez, our conference director, back, and you can chat with them.
I love talking to Fernando. And family, I hope to see you at Creating Change.
Queer News, Queer News, Queer News.
If you've enjoyed what you heard, rate and review us inside your favorite podcasting app. This podcast is written and produced by me, Anna DeShawn. Podcast editing by Ryan Woodhall. And brought to you by E3 Radio and distributed on The Cube. We are Queer News Done Right.